1982 was the year the first release of the Commodore 64 computer. Sony's first put out the CD player. Michael Jackson's Thriller was the top of the charts. And we also had E.T. as the top of the movies. And that was the year I graduated from high school. When I graduated from high school, I had my first janitorial business. And I also went to junior college over at Sac City. I was going through there just doing my general ed and working at nights with my janitorial service. Well, I had a few businesses and I guess I just kind of ran out, so I didn't do the janitorial anymore. Also at that time, I picked up weightlifting. I had a good friend of mine who owned a gym, and so I got into bodybuilding. So I was working out and then going to school. Well, my friend lost his gym, so I no longer did that anymore. About that time, a good friend of mine, he was into a independent comic company, and he was drawing for them. And they said, "Hey, Steve, why don't you come and write for it?" I said, "Well, sure, I'll give that a try." So I went and we joined, or was hired on to a comic company. It was called Silverworth Comics, and so I was writing comics for about a year. Well, the owner, the comic company kind of went out of business. Never made it to Marvel or DC, but I did have a blast writing that. Within the comic company, I met another friend of mine who said, "Hey, why don't we start a wrestling business?" I said, "You want to?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Sure, let's do it." So while I was doing that, I also went and worked for Tower Books. Tower Books was, of course, the subsidiary from Tower Records. And Tower Records at the time, in the 80s, was the top of the line of selling records. They were all over the world. So they had a lot of celebrities that used to go through there. While we started our wrestling league, which we called it Masters of Mayhem, or MOM for short, we set our first wrestling in this convention center on Mother's Day. Wasn't a very good idea on Mother's Day, but it didn't do too bad. So as a wrestling league, of course, I actually did get in there and wrestle. I was the second act in there. We did our wrestling on a old wrestling ring. I don't know if any of you know what big time wrestling is, but it was back in the, I think, 60s, 70s. They used to have it every Saturday here in Sacramento, California. Well, we wrestled on that old ring. Let me tell you, it's not too soft as it grow, the age on that ring. Anyway, so while we were doing our wrestling league and association with Tower Books and Records, we did some bodyguarding for them. We bodyguarded Chuck Norris, and of course I know you guys thinking, Chuck Norris, does he need a bodyguard? No, it was more like crowd control for him to make sure, but Chuck Norris, we did the Temptations, Shirley Temple Black, very, very nice lady. Of course, you know, she wasn't, when she was in the movies, of course, she was much older and I think a representative of West Africa. And Malcolm John Warner, he was just, he was still in the Cosby's, was still going at the time. So we kind of did that in the wrestling. Then I kind of fell out of that. The three partners that I had just didn't work out. So that's when I pretty much went and got my truck driver's license, and I was driving truck for a while. Did the seasonal stuff, tomatoes, rice, and all that. And then I started working for the county, County Public Works. Now that's, of course, who picks up your recycling and all that, recycling, garbage, and that. And so that didn't last long because I injured myself, and so I was out on disability for a while. Then my wife saw, hey, they're hiring seasonals at Franchise Tax Board. I said, well, I don't want to go work for Franchise Tax Board. what's franchise tax board? And she goes, yes, you need to go. Let's go. We need to go and put in our application. So I, in 1999, I came my first season on swing shift in the receiving area. And I said, hey, I kind of like this job. Well, maybe I can make a career out of this. So I said, all right, well, let me stick this out. So I carried over to day shift because, swing shift only lasted for 3-4 months. I went to day shift and I took the TPA test. Yeah, I was picked up. I worked in receiving for a while. I do believe it was 10 years in receiving, and then I transferred over to the IVS area as a supervisor. I worked my way up as a TPA, TPT1, and supervisor. And so I said, well, I'm definitely going to make a career out of this. So I am a supervisor now in IVS, and I am enjoying my career here at Franchise Tax Board. So I want to thank you very much for listening to me.